We have seen what is an XML, some basic idea regarding how the XML was formed. Let's look at the characteristic of XML. Now this could be one of the questions. What is the characteristic of XML? Now one of the important characteristic of XML is it is extensible. What is the meaning of saying extensible? Is it is possible for you to extend the existing structure. So it is up to you how you are going to form, or how you are going to manipulate, or how you are going to extend the given XML, or how do you use the XML in the given scenario. There is no hard and fast rule saying that it is this way you are supposed to form it. So if you are not happy with the way in which things are getting represented, it is up to you. You can create your own tags and use it. Whereas if you take the HTML, it is not possible for you to extend the existing tags, whereas it's possible in the HTML. Now, by the way, I know that you are familiar with this, so I will quickly go through it and let's look at what is really important. Okay, so that's the meaning of saying that you can create your own elements and assign them your own name. You don't have to stick on to the existing tags. Also, when we say extensible, it is not patented or it is not copyrighted by anyone. It is only the specification that is given by the W3C. I'm very sure you have not visited that. I think I restarted the system. If you go to this w3c.org, I visited that site. I straight away go to the XML part. Now, if you go to the home page, it will be slightly different. Under this home page, I will just go to the W3C is responsible for many things. If you are not visited that web page, that is the URL, if you are not again familiar, w3.org, which is responsible for many technologies. One of them is the XML. I have searched and there are many other things. I went to this XML technology, and you will be able to get a lot of in-depth information about what is XML and how to use it, and what is the current draft that they are using, and so on. So a lot of information is there. However, you must remember that the W3C is just recommending how to use it. It is not, it doesn't have the patent or copyrights for the XML. It's just a recommendation, anybody can use it. So that's the reason it is called as extensible. Whereas if you take Java or anything, if you're not happy, you can't change the base type of Java because it is already there with Oracle or some ecosystem. That way, your XML is extensible. Now, one of the best use of the XML is we take the XML and we take their guidelines and build our own languages. We'll see what do I mean by saying we build our own languages. What is the meaning of saying languages is we take the tags, any type of tags, we select few important tags. The simplest example is the HTML. What they have done is they have restricted the users or the developers from using certain tags, and there is a way in which you have to use it. So if you want to use a table in HTML, you can't write tr and td first and table inside. It's not allowed. So there is a rule that you have to follow. Again, in the HTML, the body must come inside the HTML tag. You can't put the body first and the HTML tag inside the body. It is not allowed. So these are restrictions. How do we put the restriction is there are two ways in which we can do it. One is using the DTD, that is document type definition, and the other one, or you can also call it a document type declaration. Other one is the XML schema. So these are the two ways in which we restrict. We tell the others that you are supposed to follow certain guidelines or you are supposed to follow certain model. When we do that thing, when we restrict the XML to a very specific model, what we get is a language. One such language you are going to use in this Silverlight is this XAML. That is, yesterday again I told you. Let's look at it in the practical classes. The next characteristic is human readable. XML, you are already familiar. It is possible for you to directly read it, even though nobody likes to read the XML document. But if you put an effort, it's possible for anybody to read the XML document because it is in a language that is understood by humans. So it is not a binary zeros and ones that is there. Anybody can read it. It need not be in English. It could be in Chinese, it could be in Kannada, or it could be any other languages. The tag could be in any language, but it is in the human readable format. That's one important thing. Again, when we talk about XML, what is important for us is to identify the data. By putting a tag around it, we are not manipulating the data. The content is not getting manipulated. We just put the tag to identify them. So XML, what it does is it completely separates the document data from the processing operation. So in the yesterday, you have just seen, just because we have used, even though it was just a crude introduction to how to start processing the XML, you realize that it's easier to pick up the content and use it. In the later class, you will see how to pick up the attribute and how to pick the proper attributes out of the XML and use it. So most of the configurations are based on that, and definitely you will be using it heavily. What XML does is it separates the content. It is used to mark up the thing, and again you are already familiar. XML has nothing to do with the presentation. Now, if you want to present the content neatly, if you are not happy with the way in which the XML raw XML document appears, you can always use the CSS to format it in a neat format and present it. Or there is one more extension that is called as XSL, that is the XML style sheet that you can use. This is called as extensible style sheet that can be used to transform an XML into something else. You can transform a XML document to a PDF document or to a text document or to a HTML document, then use it. So that is a transformation language. Again, it is based on the similar syntax that of XML. We will see that thing in the future classes. The next characteristic, very quickly I'll go through it, is machine readable. So XML, it's possible for humans to read it. It is possible for the machine to read it. Yesterday you have seen that thing. You can write a program and make the machine read an XML document. Remember, just compare what you have done. Even though you have not done too many things with the yesterday's practicals, but you realize that it is not the way in which you were reading the text. So it is not, I have not read a text and then started searching for the register number or student or something. I was specific with respect to the element. I started reading the elements, then I started manipulating it, even though the manipulation was just to put it into the tree. But you can do something else, maybe in your practical examination. You may get a program, or you may be asked to do something like read a XML document, find the total average and produce it in a neat format, the summary of the data which is there in the XML document. So this is what is a real life scenario. You are given an XML document, you have to read it and then produce something, some report or some thing of that sort. Again, if you take one step, maybe after 2 to 3 classes, you will realize that there is something called as data sets, which are used heavily by the Edo.NET. So whenever we try to access the data in the database in our in .NET, any .NET language, what we usually do is we don't go to the database and do it. We go to the database and ask the database to give the data. Whatever the data is given by the database is first stored temporarily in the memory in the form of a XML document, and that is called as data sets. Data sets are nothing but XML document which has the same representation or the same structure as that of the data which is there in the database. You'll see how easy it is. to manipulate the data when it is in the form of XML, that part in the practical. The next one is there is a hierarchical structure. Whenever there is a structure, whenever there is some sort of symmetry, it is much easier to use it, and you will definitely appreciate the second line over here that just says that it is database neutral. Now you are very familiar. When you try to use a database, you studied there are different ways in which the data is represented. You have relational database, other type of databases, and the way in which you interact with them is slightly different. Whereas this is plain text that is represented there. You don't have to bother about whether it is a object based database or whether it's a relational database or whether it is something else or a network way of representation. It's not the issue here. Anytime you can directly use a text document and use it. Again, it is possible to verify. Now this part we will see heavily. We can validate the correctness of the XML document, and that is one essential thing that you need to do as a programmer. Whenever an XML document is given to you, you must first validate, or in other words, you must verify that what data is given to you is in compliance with some things, some rules or some standard or some protocol. Don't blindly accept the database, accept the XML document and then start processing it. What will happen is, you know very well, XML was meant to transfer the data from one side to the other side over the internet, and you know very well internet is not a reliable way of network. It's not a reliable network. Anything can go wrong when the data is transferred from one side to other. And there is other problem with the XML is that it is a plain text, so anybody can manipulate the content and send the data to you. So what you receive in the form of an XML, you have to first validate that this is proper. And how do we do it? If you just go to the, again I'm just going to the previous one, here under the XML, I think, what is that thing? You have, if you just notice over here, what is that thing? The crypto encryption, I don't know, I'm not getting it. If you read this thing, the draft that says, encryption. I'm not getting that word. Somewhere you will find that thing. The main draft that is being given up. This is with the XML only. The things that are going on here is with respect. I don't waste time on that. They are encrypting the XML document. That is the latest. Now, if you say what is the buzz in the XML buzz, that is how to encrypt the XML and send it and decrypt it back, so that it will not. It is tamper-proof. Okay. So the next other one is it is media independent. What is the meaning of saying media independent? Is it is just a plain text document that is being used up. Where you store it, how you represent it, whether you show it on a mobile device or a laptop or a projector or any other, the representation and the storage is not a deal here, because it is just a plain document. As long as you know how to store a text document, you know very well. If you can't do anything with your mobile, definitely you know that your mobile can store a text message. When you say that I can store a text message, whether it is a SMS or anything, you will be able to store a XML document because it is nothing but a text document. Other one is interoperable. It is possible to transfer the data from one side to the other. This is one of the main reason why we are using it. So, for example, a Maruti Udyog, if it wants to communicate with the MRF, both of them are using different types of system. One may be using Linux, other one may be using Mac, the third one may be using Windows, and the fourth one may be something else. So it is always the problem is how do you represent the characters. So that is the usual thing. You are already familiar. The way in which you use the enter in Windows is not the same as the enter sign of the Unix system. If you take a Windows, when you press enter, it is a single character. For the Unix machine, it is the new line and carriage written. Two characters are stored there. So the representation is slightly different. However, that is taken care by the XML. Now, what are the things that how you can use the XML? You can use it to exchange the data. You can use to share the data. What is the meaning of saying exchange the data and share the data? They're not same. When I say exchange, I mean to say that I'm giving my data from my mobile to your mobile. What is the meaning of sharing? You have a common location from which many people are able to use it. That's the meaning of saying, that is what I meant by saying exchange. Exchange is between two people. When I say share, any number can make use of it. It can be used to store the data in a different way. It can be used to create a new language. We will not be venturing into that. The next part is what is not XML. A few things. First of all, if somebody says XML is set of tags, it is wrong. Remember, XML does not say that like HTML, they don't say that you have few tags, you have to use it. They start with the blank page. You don't have anything. If you want, you create your own tags. So that's very important. XML is not set of tags. So unlike HTML, there is nothing that is there in HTML. So that XML. The next one is it's not a programming language. You can't create a variable and declare a procedure. That kind of thing is not possible. It is not a protocol like your network protocol. It's not. It's just a way of representing the things. Again, the why that word is there is you will always hear this either the SOAP and other type of protocols which only talk about XML. Then the usual thing is people just get confused as to say that okay, SOAP itself is an XML. SOAP is not an XML. SOAP knows how to carry an XML document from one side to the other side. You have seen it in the last class. Again, it's not a database management system. You know very well, database management system requires a software that through which you can query, you can retrieve, you can write procedure and store it there and do something over it. XML is not meant for that. Okay. Some of the use of XML, I'm not going to waste my time. XML can be used to represent mathematical equations, and that is called as MathML. If you want, just search for the keywords. WML is one of the, at least you know that thing, wireless markup language for the mobile gadgets. Then for open financial exchange, there is one XML. Now, what is difference in these things? Only the rules or the structure or the model how the XML has to be prepared is different. For mathematics, they have certain rules. If you are writing equation, if this must be expression must come like this, these tags must be used. They are restricting you. How the HTML is restricting you, MathML will also restrict you with certain tags. And there is a usage, how you are supposed to use it. One thing must come before the other, and there are some relationship. You have to follow that thing. How you have it in the HTML, the same thing is valid for mathematics or wireless or any other thing. You also have it for electronic as well as e-commerce, as well as the chemical markup language, voice markup language, music, ML, and so on. So there are many use of XML in different things. And we also have one of the important use of this is resource description format. This is used for RSS feeds. This one is used for that. I've dedicated a slide again. Since you're familiar with it, I'm just going forward with it. There are a few other technology that is related with the XML. One is XPath. The second one is XSLT. XPath is a way in which you navigate through the different parts of the XML. You see this thing in your practical classes. XSLT, I've already told you, it's a way in which you transform an XML document into something else. Either it could be a text document, or it could be a PDF document, or it could be something else. This is the way in which you transform the XML. XQuery is a way in which you query the XML. XPath is also doing the same thing. You will see the difference. The next one is XPointer and XLink. It is used to create, it's like a hyperlink to different section of the XML document. Okay, so let's go to the XML. We'll start with the XML now. When we talk about XML in general, there are three things are required. One is we need XML document. The next one is, these are optional. You may require either DTD or the schema, one among them. And the third one is XSL. XSL is nothing but transformation. Now why that transformation is required? Because it is very difficult to read the content from a raw HTML document. So usually a style sheet can be used to display it in a neat format. In the next practical, you are going to see how you can associate a style sheet with the XML document and how the things will change. The XSLT will come slightly later. Let's look at an XML document. So suppose if you have if you want to create a XML document, which you are already familiar with it, an XML document contains a number of elements, and there must be at least one element if you want to use it, and that element is the root element. Everything will come inside it. So I'm going to just create a simple, I'm not going to create a project, so because I'm not doing any thing over here. So what I'm going to do it here is, I've started a Visual Studio, and I will go here and just say I want a file. That's it. I'm not interested in creating a project and all those things. I just want to create a file, and it's going to say, okay, which type of file you want to create. I just want to create, let me zoom out a bit. I think this is because of the resolution. It is not able to support the type of resolution that the LCD has. I will just say open, okay, I can't help it. You see that the resolutions, if it is going beyond certain level, it is not possible for it to do it, even though it tries its level best to do it. Now for the time being, just ignore the first line over here. Now what is required in your XML, any XML document, is at least one element. How am I going to write a element? Now element is represented in the form of a tag. What do I mean by saying in the form of a tag? Anything that you write in between the angled bracket, that is less than and greater than, is considered as tag. It is not considered as part of your data. Now the usual question, if you have the question, what if I want to represent only those two tags, what are you going to do? We have an option for that. So in any XML document, please ignore the first part. I'll come back to that first part. It contains a tag. Now that tag is called as the root tag. Now let's say I'm going to create a tag called as products. Okay. Now Visual Studio is a bit intelligent, and it's going to say that immediately it will create something called a /product. Why that is required? As far as the rules of the XML, in the XML, if you want to create anything, every tag that you start must be closed. That means the tag will work like a block. So what is the meaning of that? In the XML, this is a tag. Why it is a tag is because it is written in between two angle bracket. Now, what they say is, if you start a tag with any name, this name is yours, you can write XYZ or anything you can write. The same tag must be closed. How do I close it? To close it, you just use the one slash with the same name. So this is called as the start tag. The other one is called as the end tag. And what I have created just now is one element, and this element is a very special element because it's only one element that is there, and this element, any name you can give, is called as the root element. Anything that you want to create must come inside this. Any other things that you want to create must come inside it. So suppose if you want to create one more element, you start with the same thing and you just say product, and it just is like this. Okay. So the next usual thing is if I write like this. So are they same? The answer is no. They are case sensitive. Unlike your HTML, HTML is non-case sensitive. XML is case sensitive. Remember that thing. Most of the software expects you to type it in a proper case, either the first way or the other way. So suppose if I write like this, okay, now I must close it with the same thing. What if I try to do other way around? The Visual Studio itself will say that, say you made a mistake, okay, you started with something called as a capital D and you are trying to close it with the small d, I can't accept it. Okay, so if you want, you put the proper casing. So that is really required. So one other thing is it is case sensitive. Now the next one is what will come here. The in between the tags you can write anything. Now in your HTML, you notice that if you put a space and if there is no style sheet associated with it, and if you put the space, usually the browsers, what they do is they just truncate the space. As far as the specs, what is told to the XML parser, remember browser is always forgiving. So if you don't close some tags, browser will try its level best to interpret it and just dump that thing to the user. That's the reason you find that some tags or some HTML file look very different in one browser and they look different in some other browser from different make. The reason is the browser is designed in such a way that if there is any mistake, it is not raising a error. Unless and otherwise, it is not possible for it to continue. Most of the time, browsers don't raise a exception or they don't raise an error and they say that, okay, there's something wrong in your HTML, this tag is not there, that tag is not opened or that tag is not properly put and other things. Because they are designed to do that thing. And also, in the browser, even if you give a XML document with the spaces, they are designed to truncate those spaces. So don't assume that the browser itself are the one which are going to parse your content. You already seen in the yesterday's class, I was not using Internet Explorer to view the HTML document. I was using my own application to read the XML document. Maybe some other program will do that thing. So whenever you are using the programs, whenever you are using the APIs, they will not touch the data. So what is the clear specification from W3C is what is coming in between the open and close tag. It must be interpreted by the appropriate application. You are, as a parser, either you take a browser or any other, the parser is not supposed to do anything with the data. So there is a space, whether it is relevant or whether it is irrelevant, it has nothing to do with the parser. It has to be validated by the application. So how many spaces you put, whatever you do it, as it is, the data is taken and given to the application. So they will not truncate the data or truncate these leading spaces or trailing spaces and give it to the application. As it is taken and given to the application. So why did I tell you that thing? So be careful whenever you are writing the data, when you hard code the XML document. Most of the time we don't generate the XML document. We expect the application to automatically generate a XML document for us. So if you hard code any XML document, what is the meaning of saying if you hard code any XML document? Most of the time whenever you want to do something, you may have to manipulate the configuration information, and most of the time the configuration information is presented in the form of an XML. In the last semester you have already seen web.xml was one of the document that you were using. That was a perfect XML document that was used to configure your website. Now unnecessarily, if you are manipulating it manually like this by changing some value, unnecessarily don't put the leading spaces or don't put the trailing spaces. If it is acceptable, do it. Otherwise, what will happen is the application that tries to interpret it, it may say that, okay, I didn't find anything. There was space there. I was expecting a number because it is starting with the space. It may say that that's invalid configuration. Okay, so be careful with it. So let's come back to the slide now. Very quick information. What is there in an XML document? It contains elements. Okay, elements are used to describe something. For example, I have not written the full part. I have created a product, so I would have created many products there. with some names for that. Okay, how do you represent an element? Elements are represented by the tag, and we have the tag is nothing but something that is written between the open and closing brackets. And there is very important thing, the tags must be closed. Now there are two ways in which you can close the tag. Suppose if you find that you don't have anything to write, for example in this case I have nothing to write here. In this case, suppose say I have nothing to do here, so I can write in this format. Now this is a shortcut for representing the other one. So this is a empty tag. This is called as an empty tag. This one is nothing but a block tag which contains the open and close tags separately. Now the question is, why do you have to use it if it doesn't contain anything? Here I can write some data in this place. So it contains some data, P1 contains some data, whereas here P1 does not contain anything. So you may say that then why do you write a tag when it is not representing any data? Later I will tell you that, I will show you how we can put an attribute for the tags. So usually the empty tags are used to hold only the attribute. For example, I'll not explain that thing. Say I will just say the way around. Okay, so try to I put one more space over there. Okay, so this is an empty tag. Now there is small difference between these two. And what is that thing? This part is the data. Remember, the other one is the attribute. So attribute is very small variation. Attribute is always placed inside the tag. Remember, and also attribute is placed for the starting tag. Attributes are not placed for the ending tag. This is not the way people expect you to put the attribute. What is the reason? Attribute, if you want to put it at the start tag. Do not put the attribute at the end tag. It is not valid. So that is the meaning of the attribute. Let's go back to the slide now. What is an empty tag? Empty tag is nothing but a tag that is immediately closed with the slash. That is the empty tag. Okay. How do I create? Now you know very well. Whenever you learn a programming language and whenever somebody says a variable, then usually usual thing comes, what is valid for the tag names? So can I use anything and everything for the tags? There are few restrictions. The restriction is whenever you use the tag name, it must contain alphabets, numbers, or some ideograms. You can't have each and everything. I'll tell you which are not allowed there. Again, the other one is you can begin a tag with the underscore. That's allowed, or a letter. You can't begin with a number. That's not legal. Also, you can't have the spaces in the name of the attribute. So let's look at that thing now. If you create a tag, you notice that, see the difference. I will type ABC, and the minute I close it, Visual Studio tells me that okay, I'm going to close it. Now the thing is, I start with some number and then try to close it. Visual Studio keeps quiet. What is the reason? The Visual Studio just says that's not allowed. I don't know what you're trying to do. Here, if you keep the pointer over here, it just says no, I didn't get it. What you are trying to do. You can't start with the same thing. I think you are already familiar with the variables. The same thing is true. Again, what is not allowed in the tag, this I will just say. Position dot x. Okay, I put the dot here. Is this a valid one? So, is this a valid one? Remember, that is valid. Question, one more question can come. Dot is valid. You don't, isn't that it's not invalid character. But what is not valid is x greater than y. I'm sorry. The minute I put that greater than or less than, just pulls it off. That is not allowed. The minute you put these characters, which are legal, within that's the character that are used to mark the boundary of the tag, that they themselves can be a part of the name of the tag. Again, once you start with a letter, then it is up to you. You can write any number of numbers. You start with the letter, that's the thing. The other one is okay. This is perfectly valid. I started with the underscore. Can I start with the plus sign? It's not valid. Okay. If you want, you start with the underscore. That is perfectly valid, but not the other symbol. A letter, any type, capital or small case, it's all legal. Now, the next question is, do I have to type it in English? Can I use my native language as the name of the tag? It is valid, remember, but that thing has to do with this part. I will talk about that part, but for now, I have a character map here. I have selected the Tunga as the font. I just search for that thing. I have the non-English character. So let me. Where's where's my not getting okay, so I got this character. So it's not really required that yeah, yes. Okay, and also the one thing I forgot to tell you, when you start a tag, you're not supposed to put a space, so that's not allowed. In the name, space is not allowed. Why the space is not allowed is space acts as a delimiter for the attribute. So when you type like this, it assumes that the next thing that you are typing is the name of the attribute. So that's not allowed. So the spaces are not allowed as part of the attribute. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's say some of the valid and invalid one. These are perfectly valid. So even you can put the dash. I'm not showing you that. Dash is allowed. What is not allowed? Okay. I've already shown you. Anything you can write. Non-English is also valid. Because we are not, I have told you, the XML is in the form, human readable form, that's it. When we say human readable form, it is not always English, because not everybody is able to read English. But what is the meaning of saying non-human readable format? The non-human readable format is that zeros and ones which you usually find in a binary document, which is very difficult to understand. So it is in the text format. The language that is used is it may be different, okay, but it is in the text format. So that's the meaning. Again, there are few restrictions. One of them is you are not supposed to use this colon. Now the colon, it is not a restricted word, restricted letter, but when you use the colon, it means something else. I'll tell you what is that something else later. For example, when you, I don't know whether you are familiar with it, when you use a namespace and other things, that colon comes into picture. Okay, when you put those, that symbol has some other meaning, special meaning, so it's not allowed there. Again, the one other important thing, whenever you are nesting the tags, what is the meaning of saying nesting the tags? Placing one tag inside the other and so on. The nesting must be properly closed. What is the meaning? The outermost tag must close at the end. The inner must close before the outer. For example, in this case, I have account which is the outermost tag, and there is a balance which is inside it. So this is proper. But in the other case, you notice that account starts first, then account must end at the last. Okay, here what has happened is account started at the beginning, but balance ended later. So you notice that these two are not properly nested. So they are going outside the other. HTML, if you try to do it, you won't get any error message, because most of the browser then try to figure out what you are trying to do it, and they will show the content at least in the proper format. But XML will not forgive you for doing that thing. So let's talk about what is there in between the elements. Now I just told you how the tags are formed. Now what are the things that can be there inside the tags? So when you create a tag, if you have created a tag here, what are the things that can come in between? If the spelling is proper. You can have the name text as it is. Any line of text, it's valid. Maybe you can extend it. Anything. Any number of text is possible. You can also have one more tag inside that thing. So inside student I can have one more tag. Again you can have one more tag inside it. You notice that the tags are nested. It is possible. So an element, if you just take this element, student element can contain text, can contain only text, only tags. For example, I don't know whether here, if you take this one, it contains only tags, that is sub elements, or you can have a mixture of them. So everything is valid here. Let's come back to the slide now. You can have a simple text, you can have the elements, sub elements, and text, it is usually called as mixed, and the last one is empty. What is the meaning of saying empty? The tag is immediately closed. So simple example again, I think, did I close that thing? So this is an empty tag. Now that doesn't have anything. So if you consider only this tag, it doesn't have any data associated with it. Okay, let me go back. Let's look at the example. This is an empty tag because it is immediately closing. The other one is the one that has only some text inside it. The next one is the nested one. So I will show both. I'll show both of them. Here, what is how it is nested? This contains number of elements. Every element contains something. In this case, you notice that there is some text. There is some sub elements. There is some the one at least the blank elements are there. Now whenever you are doing this kind of thing, this is usually not a good way of representation. For reading it may be easier, for parsing you will have a lot of problem with it. So do not mix in this format. As much as possible try to avoid it. It's not an error, you can do it. So it is easier to read, but it's very difficult for you to parse it. You know very well, yesterday to get an element you use dot element. To get the name of the element, you said element dot name, then you said element dot inner text. Now this one must be read as inner text, the other one must be read as element, something dot element dot name. So it is very difficult to do that thing. The next one is a combination of everything. You notice that account, there is some text, there is some combination of the sub element. So this is one element, this is the other element, and so on. There is also a plain text here. This is a mixed notation. Not a good idea, but you can use it. Okay. Then I've already told you the elements can be represented in a nested format. We have a root, child, subchild, and yesterday you have already seen how to use that thing. So, for example, you have a root element bank here, then we have a customer, then the customer name, city, state, again subdivision, sub-element inside it, so you can think of having that thing. So, just a relationship between a table and the, yes, that's a problem. No, it is not time. A relation between a table and the XML. Now, if you want to represent a person, what you do? You create a table called as person, you create two fields called as a name and phone, then for every row you add the individual names. The similar thing in XML, how do you do it? You create a root element called as person, then you create the row. Look at that thing, it is a hierarchical tree representation, the relationship between this and the other one. Then there are rows are there is a row, every row contains two things, that is name contains the actual name and you have the phone. So row ends here, there is the name and phone number. So this is how you are representing it. So here this is the root, this is, remember you are not immediately representing it here. This is one row, so you represent it as one row first, then inside that row you have a name, then you have a phone and so on. So it can go on doing like that. Okay. Let's look at the next one, that is the attribute. Now attribute is used to describe the some property of the data that you are representing. Okay. The attributes are represented in the form of key value, and very important thing, value regardless of the type must always be placed inside quote. Either you can use a single quote or double quotes. All the values must be placed in single or double quotes. It must be placed within the quotes. Even if it's a value, you must place it inside the quote. Let's look at some of the properties of the attribute. Now attribute naming follows the same thing. Now if I take the student, then if I want to describe what which student I am talking about, I can say these are NCA student or MS student or any other. Now I can say here equal to 1999, so something like that. Okay, what is the difference? What is the difference between writing something without an attribute and with the attribute? Remember, attributes are there to describe some properties. Now when you say I have a collection of students, I have the name and I have their phone number or instant number, the usual question that is asked is how these two set. I also have one set of students. How can I say that my set of students is different from yours? Usually one quality or one characteristic is taken, and that is usually the batch year. So year of passing is taken out. You may say that I am also a student of Aloysius. Somebody else may also say that I am also a student of Aloysius. Then you say I have done it during this batch, or I completed during this year. Something that distinguishes you from the other. That is what is called as describing the data. Remember, whenever you want to describe, whenever you want to put one quality or characterize the one element from the other, we go for the attribute. Now again the question is, you may say that, okay, well and good, I will go over here and let's say I will just create a name like this. Then there are a few things. I may say name like this. Just look at the way I'm doing it, and I may say that say first name is just a reference, and write like this. This is one way, or I may say that this is name, no doubt. Ignore the case there. Then I may say that first. Now, if you look at this one, When I say name, because of the attribute, I know that it is the first name. When I look at the something, if I type some thing over here, if I type the same thing at this place, I know that both of them are first name. So because if the attribute says it's a first name, here the tag itself says it's a first name. So which one am I supposed to use it? Is the first one correct or the second one correct? It depends on the application. So how you want to use it. So if you want to distinguish between something as a in the form of a attribute, you do it, or if you want it to be blown up and use it, you use it as a sub element. Now there are few restrictions when you are using it, and I think I will just go for that thing. I'll come back to this one. Something you must remember whenever you are using the attribute. Should I use the attribute or should I split it into smaller things? Whenever you are using the attribute, there are few problems. One is attribute cannot contain multiple values. That is one problem. So I can't have first name, second name, and the other names separate in a space one. It is not possible. For example, you take a date of birth. I will just give you an example. If you try to represent, sorry, go here. Okay. Now this is nothing but year, day, month and year. So they are multiple values. You can't represent that thing. You can't say that this is again year. That's a bit okay. So one attribute on its own can't show more than one value. But one element, if you had done this in this format, when you say an element, it is possible to have multiple values. Again, say this one, if you just ignore that thing, DOB, then I can have multiple values. One is this one I'm going to show is this, with the day, year and month. Okay. Other one is, just look at this example. I will just say, I will use a shortcut, favorite places, that is FAE for favorite places. Ignore the case again. Favorite places. So you may say my favorite place is Mangalore, say Biri, and so on. So these are multiple values. You can't represent them as a form of an attribute. It is in the attribute you try to do it. What will happen? I'm not saying that it is not possible to put that whole thing in a double quotes. It is possible, but it's going to blow up like anything. Remember, if you had to do this whole thing here, just say if you are going to do this and say favorite equal to say Mangalore, Mysore and so on, you'll notice that this is going to be a terrible thing, because it's not easy to represent multiple values like this, and it becomes very difficult. So you have to think, do you want to represent the multiple values, or if you have to think whether it is very lengthy data that I am going to represent. If you feel that the data is very large, or the number of characters that you are using is very large, just take it as an element, don't put it as a attribute. Attributes are usually used for as an identifier only, or as some reference point. They are not a very lengthy thing. The next one is, it is not possible to expand the attribute. Now, what is the meaning of saying expand the attribute? I have just given you the date there. Date had a year, day, year and month. Tomorrow if you change your mind, just I will give you again. Let me go back to that DOB. Again, I am going in the same document. Suppose say you have student, I will just say STD and DOB equal to say 12/1/2001. This This is one way of representation. And suppose if you had created this thing and you have created the DOB here, both of and if you have written the same thing 12/1/2001, it's okay. Now today it is okay. Tomorrow if you decide that I want to blow this up and I want to represent the day, month and year, I can easily say that this part is day. Just ignore the case again. The next one is month. Say, I don't know, I think some and a year, just a reference. Now you notice that some year is there. Now you notice that it is much easier. Now again, you notice that this still represents the date of birth, DOB. But if you try to do this, what will happen? In this case, if you want to blow this up, then you have to discard this DOB altogether. Then you have to start with a separate attribute saying day is 1, month is say 2, and so on. So it's not easy to expand the attribute itself. So it is up to you whether if you decide that tomorrow you're going to expand that thing, you do it. Okay. Now it is not possible to represent. Okay, attributes cannot describe the structure. The day I've just shown you, day, month and year. That kind of structure, look, you can get it. The next one, it is a bit difficult if you are using attribute to manipulate the content. You'll see it in when you write the program. Okay. The last and the some dangerous part of it is it is not possible to test the value of the attribute whenever you are using DTD. We'll see that DTD later. It becomes a bit difficult. Okay. Let me come back to the place where he has. Oops. Okay. You can have the other. Okay, I'll just complete this thing and we'll finish it off. You can have. You've already seen any number of attributes. You can go on creating any number of attributes. Each attribute is separated by a space. However, there is one problem with the attributes. Attribute name, remember I'm writing it in the same way, attribute itself can't be repeated. Look at here, there is a duplicate attribute, it is not allowed. You can, in the other element, this is not the one. You can have a element without the attribute or some of the attribute, or you can mix the attribute. The order in which you write the attribute is not important. You must remember that thing. When you are reading it, that's one of the problem with the attribute. The order is not important. So you may start in one element, you may start with the name, then make in the other one make and the name and so on. The order is not important. You can have it in any order, but again you may omit some of the attribute in the some element. It is also allowed. However, the repetition is not allowed. Okay, so with that I think I will wind it up. So can appear it in any order. More than one element is not allowed.